Isaac Whitmore's 6-year-old son, Hudson, was asleep on the pull-out couch of their tiny hotel suite, wrapped tightly in a blanket that smelled faintly of fast food and detergent. Isaac sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the ceiling, trying not to let the day's chaos crush him. He hadn't planned to stay overnight in a hotel, let alone one that had valet parking and a chandelier in the lobby. But when the water heater in their rundown apartment exploded that morning, soaking everything from the floorboards to Hudson's backpack, he'd had no choice. The city's emergency housing lines were backed up, and the cheapest last-minute room he could find was at the Grand Aurora Hotel only because someone had canceled last minute. "Tomorrow," he whispered to himself, rubbing his hands over his face. "Tomorrow I'll figure it all out." He slipped on his hoodie and stepped into the hallway. He needed a drink, just a coffee, something to keep him going. The lobby bar was still open, dimly lit and mostly empty except for a woman alone at the far end, sipping something from a crystal glass.
He didn't want to make small talk.
He just wanted caffeine. But as he passed her, she looked up. "Rough night?" she asked, her tone light, but her eyes sharp. Isaac paused. He looked down at his worn sneakers, his fading jeans, then back at her. She was stunning. Dark hair in a low bun, wearing a silky navy blouse tucked into tailored white pants. Definitely not someone who ever had to worry about broken water heaters. "Something like that," he said, giving a short laugh. "You?" She smiled and tilted her glass. "Celebrating escaping a charity gala full of people who only care about what you're wearing and who you're pretending to be." He blinked. That wasn't the answer he expected. "I'm Naomi Sinclair," she said, extending her hand. "Isaac Whitmore," he replied, shaking it. Her grip was warm, steady. Naomi looked at the bartender. "Can we get my new friend here something?"
"On my tab."
"I know, that's okay." She raised an eyebrow. "It's just coffee. Unless you want something stronger." Isaac hesitated, then sat on the stool beside her. "Coffee works." He didn't tell her about the flooded apartment, or the fact that he'd picked up an extra shift at the auto shop last weekend just to make rent, or that Hudson's birthday was coming up and he didn't know if he could afford even a second-hand bike. Instead, they talked about silly things, bad hotel art, the weird music playing in the lobby, awful coffee brands. Naomi laughed easily, her voice low and warm, and Isaac found himself relaxing for the first time in weeks. But when she asked what he did, he hesitated. "I'm a mechanic," he said eventually. "Single dad."
"It's
a lot." Naomi's expression softened. "How old's your kid?" "6. Hudson. He's sleeping upstairs." She smiled, and something in her face shifted. "That's a good name." "Thanks." He picked it out himself. Said it sounded fast. Naomi laughed again, and for a moment it felt like the world outside the hotel didn't exist. They talked until the bar closed. She walked with him to the elevators. "Nice meeting you, Isaac," she said, her voice gentler now. "You too, Naomi." She hesitated. "You know, I usually don't talk like this with strangers, but I'm glad I did." He nodded slowly, feeling the same strange tug in his chest. "Yeah. Me too." The elevator door slid shut, and Isaac leaned against the wall, a strange, fluttery feeling in his chest.
He didn't know her last name.
He didn't know what she did. But she was real. She listened. She laughed. She didn't look at him like he was some charity case. And he had no idea Naomi Sinclair had just inherited a luxury real estate empire worth over $20 million. The next morning, Isaac woke up to Hudson poking his cheek.
"Dad, I'm hungry."
"I know, buddy. Let's go find something." They went downstairs to the hotel cafe, and as they waited in line for bagels, Isaac heard a familiar voice behind him. "I was starting to think I imagined you."
He turned.
Naomi stood there, dressed casually in jeans and a soft yellow sweater, sunglasses perched on her head and a coffee in her hand. Isaac smiled. "Morning." Hudson looked up at her curiously. This is Hudson, Isaac said. Hud, this is Naomi. Hudson blinked at her. Are you the lady my dad talked to last night? Isaac coughed. I might have mentioned you. Naomi crouched to Hudson's level. Nice to meet you, Hudson. That's a strong name. He grinned. I picked it. I heard, she said with a wink. They ended up sitting together. Naomi ordered an extra muffin just in case, which of course ended up in Hudson's hands. She didn't ask questions about why they were staying at the hotel. She didn't press. Instead, she told Hudson a story about a bird that landed on her balcony once and wouldn't leave. He laughed so hard juice came out of his nose. When breakfast ended, Isaac stood. We should let you get back to your day. Naomi hesitated. Actually,
I don't have any plans.
I was going to walk around the park near here. You and Hudson want to come. Isaac looked at his son. Hudson's eyes lit up. Please, Dad. He couldn't say no to that face. At the park, Naomi bought Hudson a balloon from a vendor without blinking. Later, she helped him pick out a toy at a corner store, a little red car he clutched the whole way back. As the sun dipped low, Isaac turned to her. Why are you doing all this? He asked. Naomi looked at him and said, Because when I'm around you too, I feel like I can breathe. Isaac didn't know what to say to that. But he knew exactly what she meant. He hadn't felt this light in months. And he had no idea how much deeper he was about to fall. Isaac adjusted the strap of Hudson's backpack and glanced at the time on his phone. They had just under 15 minutes before the school bell rang, and the walk from the hotel to the elementary campus wasn't short. He tightened his grip on Hudson's hand as they crossed the last intersection. Why can't we go home today? Hudson asked, skipping a little to keep up. Because they're still fixing the pipes, Bud. Maybe tomorrow, Isaac said, careful to keep his voice upbeat. He didn't add that the building manager hadn't returned his last 2 calls or that the repair guy mentioned something about mold in the walls. None of that was Hudson's problem. When they reached the school gate, Hudson gave a quick wave and darted toward the courtyard, his red hoodie bouncing with each step. Isaac waited until he was inside, then turned and started back toward the hotel. He hadn't even reached the corner when a sleek black sedan pulled up beside him. The passenger window glided down. Need a ride? Naomi leaned toward the window, sunglasses perched high on her head, her hair in a haphazard braid over one shoulder. Isaac laughed under his breath. Do I look like I can afford to say no to that? Get in, she said, unlocking the door. He slid inside, the leather interior cool and spotless. Naomi pulled off from the curb and merged smoothly into traffic. I thought you said you didn't have plans yesterday, Isaac said, eyeing the car's dash screen, which displayed a navigation system that probably cost more than his monthly rent. I didn't, she replied. Today's different. I'm headed to a site meeting, but I've got time. Thought maybe you'd want to join me. He gave her a sidelong glance. I don't know anything about real estate. You don't need to. I just thought it'd be nice to have someone there who doesn't talk in square footage and zoning permits. He hesitated. I should probably look for a new place. I've been calling around. Naomi's lips curved slightly as she turned onto a wide boulevard lined with jacaranda trees. Then maybe this will be educational. The site was a high-rise under construction downtown, wrapped in scaffolding and buzzing with workers in hard hats. Naomi flashed a badge at the foreman and led Isaac through the ground level, past stacks of marble tiles and rolls of blueprints. She greeted people by name, asked smart questions about the elevator shaft installation, and clarified a delivery delay with calm authority. Isaac watched her with growing curiosity. You run this whole thing? He asked once they stepped out onto a partially finished balcony overlooking the skyline. Pretty much, she said. I took over when my aunt stepped down. She built the company. Isaac leaned against the railing, careful of the exposed edge. That's impressive. Sometimes it feels like balancing on a tightrope, she said, glancing down at the city below. But I like it. He studied her face. There was no trace of the easy laughter from yesterday. She looked focused, determined. "I've got to ask," he said. "Why invite me here?" Naomi turned to him. "Because you don't expect anything from me. You're not trying to pitch an idea or ask for funding. You just talk to me like I'm a person." Isaac looked away, unsure what to say. He wasn't used to being noticed like this, especially not by someone who clearly lived in a different world. "Doesn't that get lonely?" he asked quietly. Her eyes met his. "It does." They stood in silence for a few moments, the wind tugging at her braid. Back at the hotel, Naomi parked in the underground garage. She handed her keys to a valet who greeted her by name. Isaac hesitated at the elevator. "Thanks for the ride. And the construction tour." She smiled. "You hungry?"
He blinked. "Now."
"There's a place I know. They make the best grilled fish tacos in the city. Come on." He opened his mouth to come up with an excuse: money, time, responsibilities, but she was already pressing the elevator button. The restaurant was tucked between a bookstore and a florist, with paper lanterns strung across the ceiling. Naomi ordered 2 plates of tacos, a side of mango slaw, and lime sodas. As they sat in a cozy corner booth, Isaac leaned forward. "You always like this?" Naomi raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Spontaneous. Generous. Picking up stray hotel guests and feeding them tacos." She stirred her drink with the straw.
"No."
"I used to follow a schedule, so tight it made my head hurt. Lately, I've been thinking maybe I missed something." He considered that. "What changed?" "My aunt passed away 6 weeks ago," she said, voice low. "She left me everything, including a life I'm still figuring out how to live." Isaac didn't speak right away. "I'm sorry. She was the only real family I had left," Naomi said. "She was brilliant.
Tough.
But she expected a lot. Sometimes I think she cared more about deals than people." Isaac reached across the table, not touching her, just resting his hand palm up. She looked at it for a moment before placing hers gently over his. "I'm still learning how to slow down," she said. "You're doing fine." Later, when they walked back to the hotel, Naomi paused outside the entrance. "I've got meetings all day tomorrow," she said. "But I was thinking, maybe Saturday, you and Hudson could come with me to the coast. There's this beach house I'm reviewing. It's kind of a work thing, but there's a tide pool Hudson might like. And a guy brings ponies sometimes. For rides." "That sounds a little extravagant," Isaac said, half laughing. Naomi tilted her head. "Is that a no?" He thought about Hudson's wide eyes, the way he'd lit up at the park, and nodded. "It's a yes." She smiled, but this time it was softer, quieter. "I'll pick you both up at 10. As she walked away, Isaac stood at the glass doors, watching her disappear into the elevator. Something inside him shifted. He wasn't just falling for her. He was beginning to realize she might be the first person in years who saw him not as someone to pity, but someone worth choosing. The ocean breeze drifted through the open windows of Naomi's vintage convertible as the coastline unfurled before them. The road curved along the cliffs, golden sunlight glinting off the water, while Hudson's seat belted in the back, wearing oversized sunglasses he'd begged to borrow, pointed out every pelican and suffer he spotted. Isaac had never been in a car like this before. He didn't even know cars like this still existed outside of movies. The leather seats were buttersoft, the engine purred low beneath them, and every detail from the polished chrome to the smooth steering wheel screamed luxury. But it wasn't just the car that made him feel out of place, it was the woman in the driver's seat. Naomi kept one hand on the wheel and the other resting on the edge of the door, her hair pulled back beneath a scarf, effortlessly elegant, like she belonged in this world of cliffside villas and private beach access. "I still can't believe you drive this thing," Isaac said, glancing at the dashboard. Naomi grinned. "It was my aunt's. She barely touched it, said it made her feel too exposed. I think it's perfect." "It's a little surreal," he admitted. Like something out of a dream I'm not supposed to be having. She glanced at him, her expression unreadable. You're allowed to dream, Isaac. They pulled into a long, gated driveway that curved up to a whitewashed beach house perched above the shore. The architecture was clean, modern, with wide windows and a wraparound balcony that caught the ocean light just right. Hudson's jaw dropped. Is this a hotel? Naomi laughed. No, but it sort of feels like one, doesn't it? It's a listing I'm evaluating. You two just get to be my unofficial consultants. A house manager met them at the entrance, giving Naomi a quick rundown before handing her a clipboard and disappearing into the back. Isaac kept Hudson close as they stepped inside. The foyer alone could have fit their entire apartment. The floors were pale oak, and everything smelled faintly of salt and citrus. A glass staircase led to the second level, and floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over a wide deck and the sea beyond. Hudson darted to the back doors. There's a pool. Dad, there's a pool. Isaac caught Naomi watching him from a hallway, her eyes thoughtful. You okay? She asked. I'm just trying to figure out if this is real, he said. Because if I wake up and find out I'm still in that hotel room, soaking wet with a busted water heater, I'm gonna be annoyed. I promise you're awake, Naomi said. And you're allowed to be here. She led them through the house, gesturing to features she wanted input on should the kitchen be staged with high-end appliances or left minimalist. Did the deck need a fire pit or was the view enough? Isaac gave honest answers. He didn't pretend to know the market, but he knew what felt warm, comfortable, livable. You don't treat me like a client, she said as they stood on the balcony, Hudson chasing a beach ball down by the pool. I'm not, he said. I'm just a guy trying not to screw up what might be the best weekend of his year. Naomi leaned against the railing. You're not screwing anything up, Isaac. In fact, I think you're the only thing that's felt right since all of this started. She didn't have to explain what this meant. He understood. The inheritance, the pressure, the endless decisions. They were still standing there when Hudson came running up the stairs, dripping and breathless. There's a pony. Naomi looked at Isaac. I might have made a call. They followed Hudson down to the beach, where a small white pony waited with a handler. The boy clambered onto the saddle, and as the pony began walking down the sand, his laughter echoed back toward them. Isaac folded his arms, watching his son with an expression Naomi couldn't quite read. You didn't have to do that, he said. I wanted to. That's the part I'm still trying to wrap my head around. Why? Naomi paused before answering. Because when I see Hudson happy, I see relax. And when you relax, I get to see the real you. Not the guy who's trying to hold everything together with duct tape and good intentions. He looked at her, startled. That's a little too accurate.
I've been there, she said.
Maybe not in the same way. But I know what it's like to be the only one steering the ship. Yeah, but your ship comes with catered dinners and ocean views. Naomi's voice dropped. I used to think that made it easier. But actually, it just makes it lonelier. Isaac didn't reply right away. The pony circled back, and Hudson waved from the saddle like royalty. You're not what I expected, he said eventually. Neither are you. They sat on a bench beneath a wide umbrella, watching the tide roll in. Hudson played in the sand, drawing shapes with a stick. Naomi brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. There's something I should probably tell you. Isaac's shoulders tensed. Okay. When we met, I didn't mean to lie. I just didn't want to lead with the money. Or the business. I like that you talked to me like I was just Naomi. You still are, he said quietly. But I'm also the woman who owns half a dozen properties like this, she said. And I don't want that to be the thing that makes you pull away. Isaac looked at the waves, then back at her. I won't lie. It's intimidating. I work 6 days a week to barely manage rent. I've been wearing the same pair of work boots for 3 years. And now I'm standing on a beach owned by a woman who can buy anything she wants. He paused, his voice steady. But none of that changes the fact that when you talk to Hudson, you make him feel like the most important person in the world. And when I'm around you, I don't feel like I'm drowning. Naomi blinked, caught off guard. Money doesn't scare me, he said. But losing something real? That does. She reached for his hand. This time, there was no hesitation. As the sun began to dip behind the horizon, casting the sky in shades of rose and gold, Naomi turned to him. Then let's not lose it. He nodded once, eyes locked on hers. Let's not. Isaac sat alone on the edge of the rooftop terrace, the city glittering below like 1,000 flickering candles. The house Naomi had brought them to another property she was preparing to lease had a view that stretched for miles. He could hear Hudson's laughter floating up from the floor below, where a nanny Naomi trusted and had arranged for just the afternoon was helping him tidy up the model train set she'd surprised him with that morning. He hadn't known what to say when they arrived and found the tracks already assembled on the living room rug. Naomi appeared behind him, 2 mugs in hand. She offered one, steam curling upward in the cool evening air. I figured you needed something warm after watching me argue with a plumber for 20 minutes, she said, sitting beside him. Isaac chuckled. I wasn't sure if I should step in or take notes. You'd be surprised how many contractors think I don't know what a pressure valve is. He blew on the surface of his drink. You don't flinch. Not even when someone's twice your size and shouting about delivery delays. She looked out at the skyline. I've had to learn how to hold my ground. There was a time I didn't. He turned toward her, resting the mug between his palms. You ever miss it? Simpler days. Naomi drew one knee up onto the bench. Simplicity sounds like something I've read about in books. I don't think I ever actually lived it. Then maybe you're due. She smiled at that, but her eyes were serious. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, about what I want instead of what's expected. Isaac watched her, unsure what she was about to say. My board wants me to expand into Miami, she said. It's a big move. They've already started scouting locations. That's a long way from here. It is. She hesitated. I told them I need time to decide. Isaac felt the unease settle in his chest. And, what do you want? Her reply was quiet but certain. I want to stay. He didn't respond right away. The night air wrapped around them, and somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed and faded again. I've been offered a manager position, he said after a long pause. At a new garage opening in the warehouse district. Better pay. Better hours. I could actually pick Hudson up from school without sprinting. Naomi leaned forward. That's incredible. I haven't accepted yet. She tilted her head. Why not? Because I've been waiting for the other shoe to drop. This whole thing it's felt like one long weekend I'm scared to wake up from. Naomi set her mug down carefully. Isaac, I don't want this to end. I don't want to go back to pretending I'm fine with shallow parties and boardroom battles. He met her gaze, the tension in his shoulders finally breaking. Then let's stop pretending. Naomi reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. There's something else. He opened it. Inside was a lease agreement. For what? He asked, scanning the page. A 2-bedroom apartment. In a building I own near Hudson School. It's not charity, she added quickly. It's an offer. Fair rent, long-term stability, and a landlord who won't ignore maintenance requests. Isaac blinked, caught off guard. You did all this without even knowing if I'd say yes. I've learned that some things are worth the risk. He set the envelope down beside him. I used to think accepting help meant I was failing. It doesn't, she said softly. It means you're letting someone stand beside you. A door creaked behind them, and Hudson padded out in socks, rubbing his eyes. Can I sleep up here? Naomi stood and ruffled his hair. We'll bring your blanket and pillows. Isaac picked him up, the boy's head resting on his shoulder. Naomi led the way down the staircase, and the 3 of them settled on a daybed tucked into an alcove with wide windows. Later, As Hudson slept curled between them, Naomi whispered, "Do you know the first thing I noticed about you?" He shook his head. "You didn't try to impress me. You didn't pretend. You just showed up. That's rare." He brushed hair from her cheek. "You saw me. I didn't know how much I needed that." She smiled, and this time it wasn't polished or poised. It was real. "Come with me somewhere tomorrow," she said. "There's something I want you to see." The next morning, Naomi drove them to a quiet lot near the water. A small, run-down building stood there, boarded windows and faded paint. "This was the first property my aunt ever bought," she said. "I used to come here with her on weekends. It was a bakery once." Isaac stepped closer, running his hand along the old wood. "Why bring me here?" "Because I want to turn it into something new. A garage. For you." His head snapped toward her. "What?" "You'd own half. I'd help fund the renovation. You'd manage it. Hudson could visit after school and help wash tires." He stared at her, overwhelmed. "I'm not trying to buy you," she added quickly. "But I believe in you. And I want to build something with you." He exhaled slowly. "You're serious?" "I am." He reached for her hand. "Then let's build it." 6 months later, the grand opening of Whitmore and Company was the talk of the neighborhood. Naomi wore jeans and a white blouse, hair wind-tossed, standing beside Isaac as Hudson cut the ribbon with oversized scissors. The new apartment was already home. The walls bore crayon drawings and framed photos of beach days and pony rides. Naomi had moved in 2 weeks earlier, setting her suitcase down with a grin that said she wasn't going anywhere. As guests filtered into the garage, sipping lemonade and admiring the fresh paint and polished floors, Isaac pulled her aside, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "I never thought my life would look like this," he said. Naomi leaned into him. "It's just the beginning." He kissed her forehead, then her lips, long and slow. Hudson shouted from across the floor, "You're doing the mushy stuff again." They both laughed, and Isaac wrapped an arm around her waist. This wasn't a dream. It was their life, and they had built it together. The late afternoon sun cast long golden rays across the garage floor as Isaac wiped his hands on a clean cloth and leaned against the workbench. The soft murmur of customers trickled out from the front office, where the last few guests from the day's appointments were finishing up with the receptionist Naomi had hired 2 months ago. Hudson was sitting on a stool nearby, deeply focused on assembling a miniature model engine Naomi had found on one of her business trips. Naomi, dressed in a navy sundress and low-heeled sandals, had just stepped inside, a folder tucked beneath her arm. Her eyes scanned the space before landing on Isaac. "I just got out of a meeting with the city," she said, resting the folder on the bench. "They've approved the Historic Preservation Grant. We're getting the funds for the Community Outreach Wing." Isaac's brows lifted as he looked up. "That means we can start the apprentice program?" She nodded, her eyes bright. "And we can pay them a real wage. No unpaid training." He reached for her hand without thinking, threading their fingers together as Hudson glanced up briefly, then returned to his model with a satisfied hum. Naomi squeezed his hand gently. "I spoke to a few of the local high school counselors. They're going to start referring students for spring." Isaac leaned in, brushing a kiss against her temple. "You know, you've got this look you get when you're proud of something. It's intense." She tilted her head. "Better than the one I get when I'm about to yell at a contractor?" "That one's terrifying," he said, grinning. "But this one, I could get used to seeing it every day." She stepped closer. "Then you'd better get used to this too." From the folder, she pulled out a slim envelope and handed it to him. He opened it slowly, eyes scanning the contents. A deed. His name. Half ownership. He looked up. "I thought we were waiting until next year." "I decided not to," she said simply. "You've earned it. This is yours as much as mine." He stared at the paper for a long moment, then folded it carefully and set it down. You have no idea what this means to me. Naomi leaned against the bench beside him. Actually, I think I do. He glanced toward Hudson. You've given us more than I ever thought we'd have. Naomi's voice was soft. You gave me something too. I was building things for people I'd never meet. You reminded me what it feels like to build something real. Hudson looked up again, holding up the tiny, completed engine. Done. Naomi walked over and crouched beside him. That's amazing. Want to show me how it works? As Hudson launched into an enthusiastic explanation, Isaac watched them, arms crossed, a quiet smile tugging at his lips. Later that night, Naomi stood barefoot in the kitchen of their apartment, hair down, humming to herself as she stirred a pot of pasta. Isaac entered quietly, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind and resting his chin on her shoulder. What's the occasion? He asked, inhaling the scent of garlic and basil. I felt like cooking, she said. Tomorrow's a big day. He kissed the side of her neck. What's happening tomorrow? Our first community day. Your idea, remember? Free tune-ups, food trucks, and a raffle. I even got a local band for the lot. He turned her gently until she faced him. You're incredible, you know that? Naomi smiled, reaching up to brush her fingers along his jaw. You're not so bad yourself, Whitmore. They ate dinner with Hudson at the small table by the window, candles flickering as the boy animatedly described his school day. Afterward, Naomi helped him brush his teeth and tucked him into bed with the same storybook he asked for every night. Isaac leaned in the doorway, watching as she kissed Hudson's forehead and turned out the light. They stepped onto the balcony just as the city settled into its quieter rhythm. The sky was ink-dark, scattered with stars, the distant hum of traffic like a lullaby. Isaac looked at her, silhouetted by the glow of the city lights. Marry me. Naomi blinked. What? He stepped closer, taking her hands. I don't have a ring yet. I don't have a speech. But I have a life I want to share with you. And I love you. So much. So marry me. Her eyes glistened, and for a moment she didn't speak. Then she nodded once. Yes. He pulled her into him, kissing her as if the whole world had gone quiet just for them. That weekend, they stood beneath a canopy in the park near Hudson's school, surrounded by friends, co-workers, and a few curious neighbors. Naomi wore a simple white dress, hair loosely pinned with wildflowers. Isaac wore a crisp button-down and the same boots he'd once worried were too worn. Hudson stood proudly beside them, holding the rings in a velvet pouch. Their vows were short, heartfelt, and filled with the kind of promises that came from weathering storms together, both the quiet kind and the ones that tore through everything. Afterward, the reception unfolded beneath string lights and live music. Naomi danced barefoot. Hudson fell asleep on a picnic blanket halfway through the evening. Isaac carried him home wrapped in a blanket, Naomi trailing beside him, heels in one hand. Back at their apartment, they stepped into the quiet, still dressed in wedding clothes, laughter echoing behind them from the street. Naomi turned to him. This is the life I never thought I'd have. Isaac kissed her gently. This is the life we made. And as they stood in the doorway of their home, his hand in hers, her head resting against his shoulder, there were no more questions. No more what-ifs. Just the quiet, steady certainty of love that had been earned, built, and chosen every single day. They didn't need anything else. They had each other. Forever.